When was the last time a Democratic presidential candidate won Texas? It might surprise you to know it was almost half a century ago, in 1976. And the man who accomplished this rare feat was none other than Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States. But how did this peanut farmer from Georgia, with no Washington experience, manage to capture the Lone Star State? And why did his connection with Texans fade so quickly after his presidency? Let's dive into the story of Jimmy Carter, an underdog, a president with a controversial term, and a humanitarian whose legacy continues to inspire. The political landscape in 1976. To understand Carter's 1976 victory in Texas, we have to look at the political landscape of the time. Texas had historically leaned Democratic, but was slowly shifting towards Republican dominance. The Republican foothold began with Dwight Eisenhower in the 1950s, but by the 1960s, Democrats like John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson managed to hold onto the state. By the 1970s, this grip was slipping. The civil rights movement and the cultural shifts of the 1960s had begun to push many Southern white voters toward the Republican Party. But then came Jimmy Carter, a man who looked, sounded, and felt like the South. Why Texas chose Carter in 1976? One of the keys to Carter's success in Texas was his Southern identity. As a white Southerner, Carter embodied the values and traditions familiar to many Texans. He wasn't a Washington insider, he was an outsider with a promise of honesty and integrity, something America craved after the Watergate scandal that had brought down Richard Nixon. Carter's authenticity and relatable persona resonated across Texas. His straightforward manner, coupled with his emphasis on faith, family, and community, made him appealing to Southern voters. But it wasn't just Carter's cultural connection that brought him victory. He also built a diverse coalition of support. Black and Hispanic voters saw Carter as someone who valued inclusion and fairness. Labor unions rallied behind him, and his campaign's message of unity helped bridge gaps across various communities. Carter narrowly defeated Republican incumbent Gerald Ford in Texas by just 4 percentage points, securing 297 electoral votes nationwide to Ford's 240. It was a hard-fought victory that marked the last time Texas turned blue in a presidential election. The challenges of Carter's presidency. However, Carter's presidency would prove to be a tumultuous one. The late 1970s were a period of economic stagnation, with rising inflation, high unemployment, and an energy crisis that led to long lines at gas stations. On the international stage, Carter faced significant challenges, including the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan and the infamous Iranian hostage crisis. The hostage crisis, where 53 Americans were held captive for 444 days, became a defining moment of his presidency. Carter's attempts to negotiate their release were seen as ineffective by many, and a failed rescue mission only deepened public frustration. At home, Carter's focus on human rights and social welfare didn't resonate as strongly with many Southern voters, including those in Texas. His presidency began to unravel, and by the time of the 1980 election, he faced a formidable challenger in Republican Ronald Reagan. The Reagan landslide in 1980. Reagan's campaign capitalized on the nation's growing dissatisfaction. His promises of smaller government, religious values, and states' rights struck a chord with Southern voters, including Texans. Reagan offered optimism and a bold vision for America's future, in stark contrast to the struggles of the Carter administration. Carter lost Texas to Reagan by a significant margin in 1980, and his political career came to a close. Yet, while his time in the White House was marked by challenges, it was what Carter did after his presidency that truly defined his legacy. Carter's post-presidency, a legacy of service. After leaving the Oval Office, Carter shifted his focus to humanitarian work. He founded the Carter Center, an organization dedicated to advancing human rights and alleviating suffering worldwide. Through this work, Carter tackled issues like disease eradication, election monitoring, and peacebuilding. One of his most visible contributions was his partnership with Habitat for Humanity. For over 35 years, Carter worked alongside volunteers to build and repair homes for families in need. His hands-on approach inspired countless people, and his efforts extended to Texas, where he helped rebuild communities devastated by Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. Even in his later years, Carter's commitment to service never wavered. He showed that leadership isn't confined to political office, it's about making a difference in the lives of others. The enduring legacy of Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter's story is one of resilience and determination. He wasn't just a president, he was a man of the people, a voice for the vulnerable, and a tireless advocate for humanity. While his presidency may be remembered for its struggles, his life is a testament to the power of compassion and service. So, when we look back at the last Democrat to win Texas, we see more than a political anomaly. We see a man who, despite the odds, left an indelible mark on history. Jimmy Carter may have lost the political battle in the end, but he won something far greater, the respect and admiration of millions worldwide. What does it truly mean to leave a legacy? For Jimmy Carter, it wasn't about power or politics, it was about people. What do you think defines a leader's impact on the world?